Okay, everybody, I hope you can hear me. If you can, great. If you cannot, I have the chat on, so just let me know. So sorry about that. Technical difficulties. And that's just the way today's gone. So, we are going to be here and we are going to be talking about the equinox. We're going to be talking about ritual. We're going to be talking about your intelligence. We're going to be talking about intuition. We're going to be talking about decisions. So, let's get really super settled to be able to have a luscious conversation. And we want to make sure that you are in a great space. So, how do we get there, right? Because our minds are just going on and on and on, and we adore our minds, but they're not always our friends, right? We make 35,000 decisions a day. It's a study that came out in like 2013, and so that's just a lot, a lot, a lot. And so when we're thinking about that, our brain is going like this, right? So what we want to do is we want to just relax ourselves first. So you're not on camera, you can totally do this, right? Unless you're driving, which you shouldn't be watching video anyway, right? So let's make sure that you are in your space, like you are in that connected embodiment, so you can get the most out of this conversation. And so I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to seep into you. And I want you to think about, we're going to have two little envisionings. We're going to have one side that you're juggling so many things and you're under pressure and there's tension and you're constantly struggling between your personal life and business and trying to keep all those plates in the air. Hi, Carla. And what you're trying to do is you want to take a step back. You want to make sure that you are making good decisions. You want to make sure that you're in this space that makes sense for you. And so, what would be super helpful for you? Calm, just peace, just being able to just open yourself up to possibilities. So, let's start there. What is possible? How can it get easier and better? How can you open up to that ease and that joy and that abundance that you dream of? Let's set an intention for that. Let's literally right now set an intention that yes, you still juggle things. Yes, there's doubt that sometimes comes in, but it's but a whisper. You open yourself up to that full potential. You're operating in your natural rhythm and your natural energy. You are embodied, right? You can feel yourself. I want you to feel your hands and I want you to feel your hips and your knees and your feet. Excuse me. I want you to feel yourself in the way you like to connect. How do you like to connect? Like that's information for you. So let's just go into that just for a hot minute. Let's just think about it. Do you like to connect like with thoughts and with conversation? Do you like to connect with ideas? Do you like to connect with people and having that interaction and having that dialogue and you don't know where it's going to go? Do you like to connect with the senses, right? Do you like to like smell something or see something or hear something? Is that what you adore? Or do you like taking action? Do you like to be in the movement of something? Do you take a little bit of time to come up to speed? Do you like to roll up your sleeves and then dive in? Because if that's what you like and that's what you adore, then this is energy that you want to become aware of. This is something that we're going to lean into right now as you talk about helping you make all those decisions, helping you deal with all the things that you have going on in your life. So we're just taking this moment and this breath to say, oh yes, okay, what else is possible? What else is out there? Because I will tell you, I have been, this is my third live today, right? Yeah. Okay. A little bit of that is like astrologer, right? Like a little bit of that is like this is the work that I do and it's equinox week. But I'll be honest with you, the equinox was officially on Tuesday late night. So it depends on where you live because it's a time zone thing when it's that late in the day. But legit, we're on like day 2 or 3 of the equinox. So why did I say, you know what? Yes to all the lives, like yes to all the things, because this energy right now is filled with possibility. It is filled with the energy of next year. Because when we are in, the sun happens to be in Aries, what does that mean? It's fiery, it's awakening, it's forward movement, it's pushing us to ask, like, How do we want to show up? How do we want to be on the edge? How do we want to awaken ourselves and have things quicken? How do we want to be able to take advantage of opportunity? This is like an outward, edgy, expansive week. I think at the beginning of the week, I talked about it being great for sales. It's like a sales superpower week, right? So that's very edgy. That's very out there. That's very fiery. And then starting on April 1st, we have Mars going retrograde. He happens to be in Aries too. So right now our minds are running amok. I'll be honest with you. They have pulsing, they have lots of information, they have lots of things that we want to do. They're very active, right? So sleeping might be a thing. It might not. Talking too fast might be a thing. Having all the ideas, creativity is like running amok in the best possible way. So it's a really good time to be talking about new ideas, to be introducing new solutions, to be really super creative, and to be on the edge of taking advantage of opportunity. And so here we are. And if you saw me at the top of the year talking about 2024, I was saying how edgy this year is. It just is. It's like the energy is on the edges. So here we are on this edgy year with this edgy week, with this edgy month coming up. And so now I'm not going to go to the edge with you right now. I'm going to go into the core. I'm going to go into like really solidifying you so that you come from a position of strength, so that you're not swept away with the energies, that you can be super empowered, super grounded, super balanced. So all you do is pivot. And that's a really beautiful way to be able to operate, because I will tell you the next 5 weeks. So starting next week, we get glimmers of it. And going through the end of April, this is a window into 2025. So in the window into 2025, this is how the energies are going to feel. Mercury retrograde is always a harbinger of the next year. So just knowing that, like, yay. And knowing that your mind can get a little bit more comfortable, because we are going to talk about your mind, right? We're going to talk about your intelligence. We're going to talk about how you like to enter into something, whether it's new or a decision or an important point for you. And with that, we want to make sure your mind gets all the full advantage, because we love our minds, right? We do, we adore them. And yet I will tell you, they're not our best friends when we are going for that opportunity, when we want to push for the next thing, when we're going to do something uncomfortable. We have to talk ourselves into it. How many people, I would love to hear in the comments, like how many people actually have to take a hot minute when they're going to do something new, take a step back, kind of like, okay, orient yourself, and then go ahead and do it. Everybody does. It's normal. Think about with children, right? When we have a child, or just knowing children in the world, we recognize that we're going to like walk them. Say they're going to school, new school, and they have to take a different bus, and they're younger, right? We're gonna walk them there. We're gonna show them the school, the bus. We're gonna introduce them to the bus driver. We're gonna tell them where it is. We're gonna make sure that we kind of position them and get them really super comfortable. Why don't we do that for ourselves ever? Like, why don't we take those minutes for ourselves? This is that time. You are taking these minutes. So, yay, brava, 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 brava for you. Because our minds want to get their arms around, right? Like arms around something new, to be able to say, oh, is it safe? Will I be protected? Is this going to work out? What is the pathway for this? Mind wants to know. So we're going to start with decisions in this knowing. For those of you who've been with me, which I'm seeing a lot of familiar names, right? So this is something that you're going to be recognizing if you follow me for a while. I always talk about knowing, that's the mind. Talk about trusting yourself, that's the heart. And liking yourself, that's the heart. And then trusting yourself, that's the embodiment. That's the full on, you're following in your own rhythm. And for me, everything is about that know, like, trust factor, which you take it and you just invert it, because then you're making solid decisions, which we're going to talk about today. You are attracting the right people that you want to work with, that have your best interests at heart. And you're also increasing your prosperity, because you're standing unwavering, regardless what's going on in the marketplace, like regardless of what's going on out there. So let's go into decisions, right? I promise, right? So I always will meet like what I say in the event, right? So decisions, there's a certain process for every decision. We're going to identify it. We're going to gather some information. We're going to assess that information. We're going to make a choice, and then we're going to act. Maybe, right? If we act, right? And if we act, maybe we're going to review. But if you go online, that's like basically the decision-making process. Like some people look at it a little bit differently, but that's basically it. So first identify, then you're going to gather, then you're going to assess, and then you're going to choose. And whether you act or not, you might not. Like you might be like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then maybe you take the time to do some, review or something like that. You're probably not going to do that for anything but the big decisions. So think about that. You're like, okay, so identifies as a decision. If we have 35,000 decisions every day, right? No, we're going to take that on the upper level decisions. We're going to take those on the bigger decisions. So when we think about decisions, those little tiny ones, whoosh, go away. The ones that are daily, that don't have major impact, we're probably going to, kind of just like rely on our own, like, really ability to be able to do, things. So it's the bigger ones. I was in live this morning and I was talking about operational decisions. They affect more than just right now. They affect you a few days from now. They might affect a few other people. They're a little bit more investment of time and energy. Those are the ones I'm talking about. One, and then definitely strategic decisions, those big ones, big investment, big things that you want to do. You are definitely going to be taking time to make sure that you sort. And Laura, I will answer that question in a few moments. So you will take the time to sort out, like, identify, gather, assess, choose, act, right? I am going to go into something which, Laura, actually, I'm going to type a message here, and see if you want to be able to go ahead and take the quiz. Because if you've been following me for a while, you've probably taken my quiz. It's a free quiz. It's 12 questions, and it has 6 signatures. Now, this quiz has been written up in Forbes. I've been given an award as one of the top female online business owners back in 2022 for this methodology. I just announced it to one media outlet, and it just went all over the place yesterday, as a matter of fact. It's going to reach like 68 million people or something. I can't even wrap my mind around that. So there's a lot of play with this quiz. I've been doing it for 4 years. There have been 22,000 people that have taken it, and you have a certain signature. How you like to enter the world. You're either going to enter it through your mind, you're going to enter it through your heart, or you're going to enter it through your being, like your whole being. So for those of you who have taken it, great. For those of you who don't, I'm just going to talk about some things, and I will give you that know, like, trust indication. So you'd be like, lean into it a little bit, right? So if we're talking about making decisions and we want to make really solid ones, and we want to make sure we're relying on our intuition plus our intelligence, because if we are just always intuition, we're not going to really be in that engagement and acting and like making sure it's rational, right? If we're just in our intellect, we're not going to be able to have that expansiveness and that growth and that transformative, reaching out to opportunity that we want. We're not going to be able to reach for possibility. It's the combination of the two. So as I'm going in, I'm going to lean into that more intelligence first, and then I'm going to lean into the intuition. And you can get the feel and the vibe for how it's going to work for you, because we're all different. Everybody's intuitive, but we all are different. So if you are looking at your intelligence, like, you might come at it totally mentally. You might be really analytical, and you might do the pros and cons, and you might make the list, and you might do all that stuff. I know you get a lot of advice for that, but it might not be natural for you. There's some people that love to do it, and some for people that don't. Because you might be better off like thinking about the possibility and about the change, and like asking, like, what if I did make this decision, and what is the biggest outcome I could have? Like, what is the best possibility? I'll be honest with you, that's mine. That's the way I make decisions. So it's not so analytical. It's still in the mind category. It's still in the knowing, but it's a whole different. It's more like about the question and the possibility versus the, I wonder what's going to happen. Let's take this to the most, like, extreme linear fashion and see where it runs. Those 2, I'm just offering 2. I'm going to offer 2 more. They're more in that heart space. They're more, the first one is social, it's connective. It's, what are other people doing? How do they come to it? Like, has this been working for a lot of people? I just spoke to you people when I told you about my quiz. I was doing that for these type of people. You are going to become part of a big, huge group. For some of you, you're like, don't care, stop talking. Other ones, you are like, ooh, Okay, then this is where you come to be, and you're like, huh, I wonder who's here. I wonder who's going to be around me. That might be a really great decision approach for you. Another way of doing this with that is action, is like, oh, I'm going to take some action here. I'm going to then, you know what? I'm going to call a few people. I'm going to talk to a few people. I'm going to look a few things up. I'm going to, try before you buy. This is why they have trials. They have trials for this type right here, for this signature. It's active oriented. If I buy it and it's free, so if I sign up and it's free, I'm going to experience it. I'm going to see if it's for me, and then I'll make my decision. Great. The next two are on that trusting. It's much more on that will based, right? So will, we think, is action. That's connection. So this is where there's two here, and these are the ones that are a little bit less um, it felt, because there's such a full embodiment. One of them is with the senses. And we think senses like, well, how do I feel? Yes, but it's like, what would it look like? How would I then be in that space? Like when they talk about the law of attraction, they're talking about this right here, because they're talking about, oh, you can envision it and intuit it and intend it, but if you don't feel it, if you don't put yourself in that space, you're not going to be able to really wear it. When I tell people to wear things, this is the one I'm talking about. Be able to have the sense of it, be able to like, put it on, like roll with it. Some people do that with decisions. Sometimes it could look like they did a drawing because they were just like getting into their own energy. Sometimes it can look like journaling. Sometimes it could like writing poetry. This is what they're trying to like actually sense it. Then the other one is value. Like, is this in alignment with me? Will this further my values? Is this going to take me to my next, mission? Is this part of who I am? Because if it is, I love talking about this for business leaders, because is it in mission? Is it not? Is it in your vision? Is it not? Is it in your values? Is it not? It's a great delineator. Some people need to be told about that and instructed about it, and some people just naturally do it. So for those of you who've taken the quiz, the first analytical one is the wise strategist. The transformative possibility one is the intuitive visionary. The social one is the collaborative explorer, that connection. The active one is the ruling warrior. And then the sensory one is that creative superstar. And then that value one is a loving alchemist. But again, this is one lens that we can look at. If you're finding that, like, wait a minute, it happens a little bit differently for me, that's great. That's totally, totally great. So let's talk about what it feels like. Like, let's talk about you being in connection with your decision, because this one is something that a lot of people don't really appreciate, right? Because we're like, wait, I'm going to analyze. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to think of the possibility and do some intention. I'm going to make sure it is in alignment with my values, right? So Carla's like value, loving alchemist. I love that, right? So there's a great way. Some people are like, yeah, I need to roll up my sleeves. I need to start doing it. When I talk about that connection, like, it's part of being something that's bigger than you. And it's interesting because the energy is shifting right now. I talk about this a lot. So if you've been following me, you've heard me say this, that, we hit that 800-year star, like back at the top of the winter solstice in 2020. And we've been operating under a new way of doing things. It's a very different way. It's unfamiliar. People are starting to talk about it now 4 years later, which, yay, I'm like, catch up as an intuitive visionary. I'm always saying that. And to be able to understand and appreciate it, let's talk about a few examples. Let's talk about what it would look like to have someone be coming at it from a value sense versus somebody coming at it from an analytical sense. And I'm picking those on purpose, because values, you could be like mission, vision, like that is analytical. It's not, it's different. So I'm going to talk about two of my clients, right? So one is a loving alchemist, and she comes into the world as a loving alchemist. She owns a cosmetic company. She's a growing business owner. She's successful, what have you. And her whole thing is about trusting your intuition. I'm going to talk about another client who's a book publisher, and she's a wise strategist, and she is very analytical, and she's very linear, and her whole thing is like opening her heart up to some things and really stepping into her power. And so when I was working with each one of them and we were talking about making decisions, I had a whole different approach for each one of them. Every single time they asked me, like, what do you think about this decision? What do you think about that decision? I was like, okay. And I literally went through their lens, right? So for Ariane, I went through, okay, how does this make you feel? Because there's that feeling piece, but how does this align with who you are? Can you wear it? Can you step into it? Can you envision it? Does this go through your litmus test of the things that you set up around yourself that you know to be true for you and you know to be true for your business? Does this, like, pass the test? And it was helping her trust, right? Because she'd be like, yeah, I knew. Yeah, I knew. I'm like, yes, 100%, you did. And whereas with Morgan, what I did was with her, with the Rise Strategist, I was like, okay, you're so powerful. I know you've got the pros and the cons. I know you've got all that. But how does that open you up to your power? How can you come and be a leader of your marketplace? How can you come and really show up in a way that you're not here, but you're here? And that's the way it works, right? And we just talked about intelligence. The examples that I made were a little bit going into the intuition, so I want to get into there right now. I want to go into intuition because intuition is magic. Like, literally, if you are wanting to have tools for your business, to have tools for your life, to have things that are in your back pocket, then you are going to want to be tapping into your intuition for business. This isn't about like going into a yoga class or meditating. That's great. If you're doing those things, I love it. It's great for your health. It's great for your well-being. It's great to lower stress. It's great for focusing. It's great for it's great for so many things. And yet, using it in your business, it just amplifies it by 10 or 20 or 30. So when we think about your intuition, so many people have such good advice, but a lot of times it's not complete because it doesn't really take you into account. So I always say this: everybody is intuitive. Every single person on the planet is intuitive. Every single one. We just have different ways of coming to it. I can't tell you how many people come to me on a sales call or a connection call and says, yeah, but I don't see anything or I don't hear anything. And I'm like, yeah, that's because that's not your vibe, right? And they look at me like, kind of like, no. And I literally tell them what their vibe is. If we're in that, part of the conversation. Oh, okay. And they literally light up. So I love to share that because we're going to go through 6 different ways that you can approach your intuition. And there's probably 27 more, but I tried to put these in categories that make sense. And yes, they do relate to the intuitive success signatures. So that first one is analyzing. I tell people who are of this bent, like if you're a wise strategist, I tell you to use your mind. Absolutely. Why would we put that big, gorgeous, brilliant intellect over to the side and throw it away and say, oh, I get to breathe. Let's kumbaya. Let's come. No, that doesn't work for you. I'm going to tell you to do things like writing. I'm going to tell you to do some journaling. I'm going to talk to you about actually literally just writing something and just starting to get that soft gaze and just focusing on it. I'm going to tell you to pull oracle cards. You need your mind to be engaged. Yay. And as you are opening to that, you're going to be breathing, you're going to be saying, okay, what else is going to be connecting? How am I going to be able to step into my intuition? Let's set an intention. Let's be filled with potential right here. I don't know. That doesn't come naturally to the wise strategist. So we have to come at it from an analytical bent. So we do. It's okay for you to do that as long as you give yourself permission to not have an answer. That's the key. Just give yourself permission as you're writing and being like, oh, I wonder how I'm going to, I don't know. I wonder when I'm going to go on vacation next. And you're just kind of writing it down and you kind of have an idea, but you don't really know. And should we go to, I'm just do close places for some people. I'll do the middle of the country. Should we go to Texas or should we go to Chicago? Right? When there's different things and different reasons why they'd both be really good. And you just start writing and wondering, magic, your intuition will start coming into play. It's really great. If you're still in that mind, that intellect, that mental place, that knowing place, the knower, This is me, intuitive visionary. We just know. We don't know how we know. We just know. It's awesome because we don't have to interpret it, but it's terrible to trust because how do you know? I used to say to my clients, oh, like literally, like, how do you know? I don't know. I don't know how I know. Right. So not awesome, but awesome because I know things that who knows how I knew, but I couldn't see anything. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't touch anything. I didn't feel anything. I just knew. Trusting that is really hard. So, what you want to do if you're a knower is you want to ask for some information. Because I didn't realize this at first. I can literally now tell if a client's sitting in front of me, I can say to them, this is what you were wearing. This is what you were doing. This is when it was. This is who you were talking to. Like, I can give them the whole scenario. Am I seeing anything? Nope. Why? Who knows? I can just do it because I asked. So, if you naturally know, you can in that moment be like, I just know, and you can ask for questions. You can be like, how do I know? Is this true? How can this be true? What else is true? Like, well, how do I step into this? What do I do with this? Right? Your intuition will answer you as you keep talking to it. If you're in the heart space, if you're a collaborative explorer or ruling warrior, we're going to go in here. One of them is observing. The collaborative explorer, you observe all the time. You just notice things. And everybody, we all have pieces of this, guys, right? We just come at it. This is that first initiative into it. So if you are an observer, you will see signs. You'll start noticing numbers. You'll start seeing, animals. You'll start noticing like different colors and whatever. That's like the first blush for a lot of people. Excuse me, as they come into their intuition. Great. But if you're really an observer, this means that you are actually in the space of observing. So you will know things and notice things, and you almost notice things that aren't even really there in the physical. You'll start noticing from body language, from people's behaviors, from the actions they take or they don't take. That's an observer. That's how you come into it. For you, you can put yourself in a space where you observe things and you can ask your intuition to open. For the ruling warrior, it's instinctive. It's like, boom, this is where gut instinct comes in. I'm like, I just know, yep, it's a yes or it's a no. That's great. Instinctive is great. And it's usually a yes or a no. It usually doesn't go beyond that. So if you want to open up as an instinctive person, that's the approach for intuition, you're going to want to allow yourself a little bit more time to be like, yes, no, why? Huh. Okay, maybe, yep. Okay, why not? You can ask the other question and just spend a little more time with it to have that conversation happen. Because what I say about intuition and instinct is the door of the house and intuition is the whole house. We're just going into different rooms right now, right? So then instinct is the open door. A lot of people who are instinctive are like, yeah, I got it. I just got it. And you're like, great. And what about the rest of it, right? Okay, empathizer. We're going to go into trust now. Empathy. So an empathizer actually draws information. Doesn't really realize you're doing it. You're like a receptor. It's like you have all this like antennas like all over your body and you're just receiving information. People say I'm an empathic, right? Like this is that category. They sense things. They're like I'm just feeling like the room. There's something here. Somebody's uncomfortable. There's just been an argument. I don't know what's going on. There's a hidden agenda. I don't know. Great. That's the way you're coming into approaching your intuition. It can get really overwhelming for these people, obviously, right? So they're going to want to be able to spend some time alone and sensing, and they're going to be wanting to spend some time putting like some mufflers on sometimes, because sometimes the rooms are too big, sometimes there's too many people, and sometimes the rooms are too fraught, right? So that's just really good information to have. The other one from a trust perspective is the perceiver. It's in this loving alchemists do this a lot. They push their energy out. They don't even realize they're doing it. They just push their energy out and they perceive. They just and how do they perceive? I just got a vibe, right? Like I just know. The good news about that for them is that they're not in that receptive. Like they have more, I don't like to use the word control, but they do. They have more ability to be able to say, I'm going to turn it on or turn it off, right? The empathizer can do that too. It's just a little bit more difficult. They have to practice more. So these are the different ways that you can come to your intuition. We talked about analyzer for the wise strategist. We talked about knower for the intuitive visionary. We talked about observer for the collaborative explorer. We talked about instinctive for the ruling warrior. We talked about the empathizer for this creative superstar. And we talked about the perceiver for the loving alchemist. Isn't this so helpful? Like to be able to understand and appreciate, like, I didn't use the clairs. I didn't talk about meditating. I didn't talk about breathing, and I didn't talk about yoga. These are these are ways that you come in, and these are the things that you can do that make it more tangible, make it more practical. Because when you're thinking about trusting and you're thinking about going into, like a decision for your business, or you're thinking about, should I work with this client, or should I hire this person, or should I, go to this conference or not, you can use your intuitive approach and start practicing with those energies with things that aren't so impactful. With some of those things that you're like, even a social media post, right? Do I think that this is going to hit or not? That's a thought. Do I perceive, if I push my energy out, how do I think it's going to happen? Or how do I know it's going to happen? Ooh, if I connect to a lot of people, what am I observing? And you can do it that way. Amazing. Okay. Going to go down to trust, because we just did knowing, we just did liking. So now I'm going to do trust. And I'm going to start with the universe. I'm going to start with going out to the universal energies. And for me, I do it through the stars. Why do I do it through the stars? I do it through the stars. First of all, I love them. Like, yes. Secondly, I've known them all my life. So yay. So there was experience there. But thirdly is because the stars were painted in the sky the minute you were born. The stars are painted in the sky now. There's some science there. It's an ancient process. Like literally the first popes used them. I mean, it goes back in time. It's such an elegant system. It's so deep, and there's objectivity there, right? So when I say like, gee, Mercury's going to go retrograde, it's not me just going like da 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 da, right? It's literally like Mercury's legit going retrograde. What's the interpretation of that, right? So when we're looking at that and we're saying about trust, it's sometimes easier. Well, I don't want to say sometimes. It's typically easier to trust something external from you than to trust something internal. So that's why we use them. We use all the stars. We get all the stars. We get all the information. We share it. We do all the things with it. And then we go into our energy and we're like, okay, how does it vibe? What is my choice now? How do I want to work with this? So whether it's a week forecast or a month forecast or an annual forecast or a big star event, it's good to know. Two reasons. One is the mind gets certainty. Oh, Mercury's going to go retrograde. Okay, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And here's what I can expect. All right, so your mind is like, oh, great. So when there's a snafu or something happens, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember now. You're more able to pivot quickly. And so that's super helpful. The other thing is you have choice. Just because it's written in the stars, that's fate. That's not destiny. The destiny is your choice. What do you choose to do with that? So when I talk about soul mission and I talk about soul destiny, I'm talking about your choice, and I'm talking about with the stars, whether they're yours or in the sky. So let's go into that. I mentioned Mercury retrograde. I mentioned Aries. I mentioned that it's a harbinger for next year, right? That's big doings. Let's talk about Aries for a minute. It's fiery. It's that awakener. It's that ignition. It's asking you, how are you brave? How do you want to show up? How are you not showing up? What's going to happen if you don't show up? Like Aries is very physical, very out there, very courageous, very much about taking action. It's very active. Somebody asked a question about Aquarius and Aries. They excite each other. So think about that air and think about that fire. Oh, more air, more fire, right? Oh, more fire can literally suck up all the air. So they literally work in tandem in a way that's exciting and stimulating, but can be exhausting. So I just wanted to answer that question from Laura. I did not forget. Okay, I just wanted to put it in the appropriate place. Let's think about this. If you are, I'm going to talk about your sun signs a little bit, just a scotch. If you are an earthly sign, that would be Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. The fire doesn't affect you as much. Sorry, it just doesn't affect you as much. Why? Because you're earth, because you are so stable. That's one of the things you chose to do in this life, was you chose to be super, super stable. If you chose a sun sign, a zodiac sign, your birth sign, your horoscope, I'm just trying to think of all the terms I can use, that you were like, I'm going to be like a tree, right? Like, but, or not even that. I'm going to be like a mountain. It's a better example. I'm going to be like a mountain. Ooh, fire, mountain. The fire's not going to move the mountain. Interesting, right? Versus if you're an air sign, I just talked about Aquarius. If that is Gemini, that's Libra, and that's Aquarius, you could be consumed by it. It could be exhausting for you. It could be something that just like literally knocks you down because you don't have the energy. It's being subsumed. Or conversely, you can ignite the fire. You could be super, super creative. You could have super solutions. You could like literally invent and innovate almost anything. So it goes both ways. Air typically has a really beautiful flow to it. If you've chosen that to be a sun sign, then you wanted that to be the core energy that you had. If I go through water, if I go through, where am I? If I go through Cancer, yeah, if I go through Cancer and then Scorpio and then Pisces. So what you want to be able to recognize is that water can put the fire out. I love the combination of water and fire because water takes that fire and just like deepen it. Yes, it can drench it. So you want to be mindful of that. Like if you're a water sign, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to be creative right now. Nope, not going to happen. I don't like Aries. It doesn't. No, what you're going to want to do is be like, ooh, how could I be a beautiful tender of that? And how can I deepen it? And how can I really root it? So those would be your questions over the next handful of weeks or any time that there's a fire sign, right? And then fire. Sorry. So fire. So if you are an Aries, if you are a Leo or for Sagittarius, kumbaya, it's like volcanic for you. The absolute creativity, the sheer innovation, the originality, your style, your flair, your leadership style, your expression, your words, they are undergoing transformation. So anytime that Mercury is retrograde this year, you can go into these energies of yourself and be like, huh. So it's interesting because when I talk about the intuitive success types, they come, that's your choice. So you could be a wise strategist and have a fire sun sign. You could be a Cancer and have a fire sun sign. And so that's the combination that I talk about in my group, my introductory Rich and Powerful Leaders group. And I do it because we can add so much more information because we are so unique. And I want to always honor that. So somebody who is a Capricorn and as a wise strategist is going to be much more linear because that's a very earthly linear. We talked about analytics, than somebody who is a Leo and is a wise strategist. A Leo and a wise strategist is going to be much more open, much more into the power, into the leadership aspect of it, and is going to have that edginess to it, right? So interesting. I just food for thought. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do loving alchemist. So a loving alchemist with an air sign. So maybe a loving alchemist might be a Gemini. That's where it's like a watery, like beautiful, value driven, perception oriented. That's the choice of this individual. But yet a Gemini wants to then have the paradox still like kind of flow between those extremes, but yet wants to also put that lens through that perception. Interesting. It's fascinating. This is fascinating stuff. So think about all these different things that we've just talked about. I'm mindful of the time. So I want you to just have a remembrance of making decisions. There are so many of them. We have a process for it, but we have a leveling that we want to be able to determine when we take more time with that process versus not. So that's really important to be able to understand and appreciate that we're all individual, that as many ways as there are to make something happen, there's as many ways as there are to open your intuition, right? So I talked about that intelligence first, and I gave you the different styles of that, whether that was intellectual or whether that was transformative or whether that was social or whether that was, active, right? So those energies there are more left brain, more logical, more reason based, but then marry those with those intuitive approaches to be able to then ask you, like, how do you like to come into your intuitive space? Is it analytical? Is it instinctive? Is it value based? And between the two of those, you then have a power pack of information to be able to help you make decisions going forward. And if it's confusing, you're like, oh my God, stop, right? Like, that's why I have my intuitive success signatures, because they will give you packets of information for you that you can say, oh, I'm just going to imply this because this is how I enter the world. As a wise strategist, I enter it logically. As a Ruling warrior, I enter it actively. As an intuitive visionary, I enter it through possibility. As a creative superstar, I enter it like through feeling and through like those senses. And as a loving alchemist, I enter it like value driven and from a perception based. We're all different. And so appreciating that about ourselves and appreciating that about others is super helpful. And so I've given you a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to feel, but I want to do ritual now because I want to be able to have you wear this energy. I want you to be able to recognize that in the equinox space, this is balance. It's equal day, equal night. So whether you're on the northern hemisphere and you're opening up to spring, or you're on the southern hemisphere and you're opening up to autumn, it's still Aries time. It's still the new zodiac time. Like, hello, right? So it's like a brand new space. There's a fresh perspective with that. And so, with this fresh perspective, I want you to be able to drop in. I want you to be able to be like going into your mind, going into your heart, going into your will, and getting just a hot breath of alignment. So let's do that right now. We've gotten a lot of information. We've gotten a lot of ideas. We've sparked some new perspectives. So let's let that come into our energy, right? And I'm going to start out, and we're going to have a little love fest for our minds because it seems like our minds aren't feeling the love, maybe. So let's go close our eyes and let's envision our mind. Let's envision like all the things it does for you. It does so many things. It solves problems, it makes assessments, it helps you with decisions, it helps you talking. Oh, the mind is wonderful. And the mind is tired, right? The mind has so many things to do. Let's just give it a little bit of breath and a little bit of space, a little bit of love. Let's just allow it to be. And so let's give that mind just a rest. Let's envision like the thoughts swirling around, but envision like a bubble in front of you. And your mind just lets those thoughts go into that bubble. Just let it stream in. And that bubble just floats away a little bit, creating a little bit more space. You can get them back later. Don't worry, you're not going to forget anything. Just going to give you some space. Because I really want to go into your heart space. Oh, and we're going to go down the throat, into the heart. Just breathing in. We're going to deepen a little bit and then we'll go back up to the heart. We're going to go to the solar plexus and the sacral and the root. Whew. Dropping into the earth, getting super grounded. I'm going to take a few breaths beautifully. I'm going to go back up to our heart space. Our heart space that has so much wisdom, is always fully connected, and has that beautiful sense of healing and belonging. So let's let our heart open to that equanimity, that equinox energy, that equal day and night. Let's let the heart beat with the night and the day, with the yin and the yang, with that intelligence and that intuition. And let's let it develop a rhythm. Whatever rhythm and tempo is good for you. Beautiful. And let's let that breathing in and out just give you a rhythm and a cadence. As we then drop into the belly to be that full embodiment. Let that mind like have that relief, but be focused on my words as we have that beautiful rhythm and cadence, and as we drop into our bellies and into our deep creative space. This is the embodiment of who we are, how we show up, and our bodies themselves. Our bodies know. Bodies have so much wisdom, and tapping into our bodies is so helpful. You know, there's a reason why they say the back of the neck chills, so you get chills, somewhere, or you feel it in your gut. There's a reason for that. The body knows. And so let's let the body and the heart take up some space with our mind. Let's let the three of them hang out. Sometimes it's great to lead with our mind. Sometimes it's great to lead with our heart. Sometimes it's great to lead with our body and some action in the physical. So let yourself just be open to the possibility of that, to the spaciousness of that, to the expansiveness of that. And with that, I want you to set an intention here on that beautiful equinox energy. of that balance, of that harmony, of that beautiful rhythm? What would you like for to show up right now? What would feel really luscious? What could you imagine being wonderful for you? What would surprise and delight you? Let that fill you. Let your body feel it. Let your mind open to it and let your heart beat with it. And with that spaciousness and that glorious possibility, we're going to come back to us. We're going to open up our breath to kind of shake things off. If we want to pick up that bubble of thought, we can. If we want to leave it, we can too. It's our choice. And as we take a few deep breaths in, we're going to kind of like, shake it off. You're going to just be here rolling around, like roll your shoulders, roll your neck, roll your wrists and your ankles. And you're in the space of you, your intelligence, your intuition, your business, your personal life. They're all intertwined. They're gorgeous and they're luscious. If you haven't taken the quiz yet, I know we've dropped the link in. I'll drop it one more time. You're going to want to go ahead and do that because there's so much information for you. I've got money information for you. I've got forecast information for you, leadership, decision making, all the things. Super helpful. People have adored it. I have a beautiful, rich and powerful Leaders Academy if you want to check out my website and just see what's going on there because I've got so many people interested in that. And I'm here, right? I show up on these major times. So, so Carla, I've been 3 lives today, I think I mentioned. So the one in the middle was not recorded. So, I just wanted to let you know that next time we're going to do a video. We did LinkedIn audio. Not a fan, by the way, but that's okay. It was our first one. So next time it will be video, and so you will be able to. We formed a brilliant business coalition. There are 5 of us, and we're having luscious conversation. Today was about intuition in business, and how we use it, and how we haven't listened to it, and how we wished we had listened to it. Those types of conversations. But for me, I have a podcast. It's your star path to success. Like I said, I have the quiz. I do weekly forecasts every Monday. I am out doing things out and about. I do live events every major, like the equinox, the solstice. I am going to be doing a 3-day experience at the beginning of June. Everybody loves those. If you are interested, just drop in the chat like, hey, like with the number 1 or something like that, and I'll make sure that I invite you. But other than that, I adore you. Thank you so much for being here today. And happy decision making, right? Happy intuition, happy intelligence, and happy equinox. Till next time.